Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. We love to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the most fascinating research out there. And today we're tackling something I think a lot of you are going to find super relevant, AI and parenting.
AI in parenting.
Yeah.
It's not something you hear every day, right?
It's definitely not something I was thinking about a few years ago. But we've got two research articles here that show just how much AI is already changing the game and how we raise and educate kids. And even if you don't have kids yourself, I think you'll be surprised by some of the findings. It really makes you think about the future.
Absolutely. It's about child development, but it's also about the kind of world we're all moving into, a world where AI is increasingly part of everything.
Exactly. So should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
All right. So the first article is all about AI in early childhood education. And you know how crucial those early years are, right? It's like kids are little sponges soaking up everything around them. Well, imagine if we could tailor each child's learning experience to their own unique needs and abilities.
Yeah, think about it. It's like one teacher trying to cater to 30 different kids in a classroom. Each kid learns differently, has their own pace. It's a lot for one person to handle.
Right. It's pretty much impossible to give every kid that individual attention they need. But that's where AI comes in. The article talks about how AI can analyze a child's strengths and weaknesses, figure out their learning style, and then create a personalized learning path that adapts as they go.
It's kind of like having a personal tutor for every kid, constantly adjusting to their progress.
Exactly. And it gets even cooler. The article talks about how AI can help identify potential learning difficulties much earlier than we can with traditional methods.
Right, like way earlier.
Yeah.
Because AI can look at tons of data, like a child's performance on educational games or even their eye movements when they're reading, and it can pick up on those subtle patterns that might suggest a learning disability.
That's incredible. And early intervention is key, right? The earlier you can provide support, the better the outcome for the child.
Absolutely. It gives them the chance to thrive.
So AI is personalizing learning and helping us catch learning difficulties earlier. It's also playing a big role in language learning, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, that's a big one. Think about it. AI can create these really engaging language learning experiences that adjust to each child's level in real time. So if a child is struggling with a particular concept, the program can adapt to give them more practice or simplify things a bit.
It's like having a language tutor built right into the software, constantly making sure the child is challenged but not overwhelmed.
And making it fun, too. Because who doesn't love a good educational game?
Right. But of course, the article also emphasizes the importance of balance. Technology can't replace human interaction, especially for young kids.
Definitely. They need that warmth and guidance from a human teacher. That emotional connection is so important.
So it's more about AI supporting teachers, giving them the tools to provide more personalized attention to each child.
Exactly. AI can handle some of the heavy lifting like tailoring lessons and tracking progress, which frees up teachers to focus on those all-important human interactions.
Makes sense. So we've seen how AI is shaking things up in early childhood education. But the second article we've got takes us in a different direction. It's about AI and child psychology. And this is where things get really interesting.
Right, because now we're talking about analyzing a child's behavior in a way that's, well, completely objective.
Okay, so instead of relying on observations from parents or teachers, which can be subjective, AI can actually analyze behavior directly.
Exactly. Like imagine you have an AI system that's watching video recordings of kids interacting. You can pick up on these tiny little details like facial expressions, body language, even vocal tone things that we as humans might miss.
It's like having a superpower, being able to see those subtle cues that reveal so much about what a child is thinking and feeling.
Yeah. And by analyzing tons of this data, AI can start to identify patterns that could indicate developmental challenges or maybe even potential mental health concerns. Stuff that we might not pick up on otherwise.
That's a game changer for early intervention, right? If we can identify these issues sooner, we can provide support earlier.
Absolutely. It can make a huge difference in a child's life.
The article specifically mentions how AI can analyze social interactions and communication patterns, which, are so important during those early years.
Right. Like imagine an AI system that can track how often a child initiates conversations, how they respond to different social cues, or how their body language changes in different social situations. It's like getting this incredibly detailed picture of their social and emotional development.
That's amazing. It's like AI is giving us a whole new level of understanding when it comes to child development. But I guess the challenge is, how do we interpret all this data? It's not always clear cut, right?
Yeah, it's not a magic bullet. It's still a pretty new field. And we need to be careful about how we use and interpret the data, like making sure the data is representative and unbiased. And even then, it's not about replacing human judgment. It's more about giving psychologists and therapists another tool to help them understand and support kids.
Right. It's all about using AI to enhance our understanding, not to replace human expertise. It's a partnership.
Exactly. And speaking of sensitive areas, one of the places where AI is starting to make a real impact is in mental health assessments for children.
That's definitely a sensitive area. Using AI to assess something as personal as a child's mental and emotional well-being, it raises a lot of questions.
Oh, for sure. Like data privacy and security are huge. We're talking about kids' information, which is incredibly sensitive. We need to be super careful about protecting that data and making sure it's only used for its intended purpose.
And parents need to be in the loop, right? They need to understand how this technology is being used and have the right to say no if they have concerns.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. Parents need to be informed and empowered to make decisions about how AI is used with their children.
The article also talks about the need to avoid bias in these assessments, which is something we've touched on before.
Yeah, it's a big one. AI systems can sometimes reflect the biases that exist in the data they're trained on. So we need to make sure that the data is diverse and representative. Otherwise, you risk creating systems that disadvantage certain groups of children, and that's the last thing we want.
It's all about making sure these systems are fair and equitable for everyone.
Exactly. And, one of the really exciting areas where AI is making a difference is in creating new interventions for children with developmental disorders.
Yeah, the article talks about personalized learning tools, social skills, training programs, even assistive communication devices. It's amazing to think how AI can help these kids thrive in ways that were never possible before.
It's opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
Like for kids with autism, you can use AI to create these virtual environments where they can practice social skills in a safe and controlled setting.
It's like giving them a safe space to practice and build confidence.
Exactly. And for children who have difficulty communicating verbally, there are these AI-powered devices that can translate their intentions into spoken words or text. It's incredible. It's like breaking down these communication barriers that have existed for so long.
It's so empowering.
Yeah.
But I imagine there are also ethical considerations. We need to be careful about over-relying on technology, right?
Oh, definitely. It's all about balance. We want to use AI to enhance and support human connection, not to replace it. And we also need to make sure these technologies are accessible to everyone who needs them, not just those who can afford it.
That's a really important point. Equity and access are crucial.
Absolutely. We don't want to create a two-tiered system where some kids have access to these incredible tools while others are left behind.
So beyond specific interventions, the article also talks about the broader impact of AI on children's social and emotional development. Like the idea that AI can analyze a child's facial expressions and social interactions to better understand their emotional state, that's wild.
It is. AI can pick up on those subtle cues that even we as humans might miss. It's like getting a glimpse into their inner world, understanding how they're feeling, even if they can't express it themselves.
And that kind of understanding is so important, especially when it comes to identifying potential emotional difficulties early on.
Exactly. Early intervention is key. And AI can give us the tools to identify those issues and provide support sooner rather than later.
The article also mentions personalized social emotional learning tools, which sounds fascinating.
Yeah, these are tools that can help kids develop empathy, emotional regulation skills, the ability to navigate social situations. It's like giving them a toolkit for building healthy relationships and emotional intelligence.
This is all so mind-blowing. It really highlights the potential of AI to transform how we understand and support child development. But I'm curious to see how this plays out in the real world. Like, how are families actually using these tools? And luckily, that's exactly what our second research article dives into.
This one focuses on a study done in Palestine, which I thought was really interesting because it gives us a different perspective, a glimpse into how AI is being used in a very different cultural context.
Right. It's not just a Western phenomenon. It's happening all over the world. And this study, it looks at AI adoption in a place that faces a lot of challenges like geopolitical instability and economic hardship.
Yeah, and the findings are pretty surprising. Despite those challenges, Palestinian families are actually quite engaged with AI-assisted parenting tools. They're using them to track their kids' development, find educational resources, even get personalized parenting advice.
So they're embracing the technology, but the article says that their perceptions of how useful these tools are is only moderate. That's interesting.
Yeah, it seems like there's still some hesitation. Maybe it's about privacy concerns, maybe it's cultural, or maybe it's just that these tools are still new and people are figuring them out.
It makes sense. Change takes time, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as parenting.
Right? It's a big shift. But the study did find some interesting trends. Like younger parents, especially those with backgrounds in science or technology, were much more likely to use AI in their parenting.
So it seems like familiarity with technology and a willingness to try new things are key factors.
Yeah, and that makes me think we might see a real generational shift in parenting practices as AI becomes even more common.
It's like a glimpse into the future of parenting where AI is just a normal part of family life.
Exactly. And it's exciting and a little daunting at the same time.
Totally agree. So we've gone from the theoretical possibilities of AI in education and psychology to real-world examples of how families are actually using these tools. It's clear that AI is already having a big impact on parenting, and it's only going to get bigger.
There's no doubt about that. It's a whole new world, and it's up to us to figure out how to navigate it in a way that benefits children and families.
Well said. That's a perfect place to pause for now. We'll be back soon to continue this deep dive, and trust me, we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore.
You know, it's fascinating to think about how different cultures might view all this. Like, what works for a family in one part of the world might not work for a family somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We can't just assume that one approach to AI and parenting is going to fit everyone, especially when you think about all the different values and beliefs people have about raising kids.
Exactly. And I think it's important for developers to keep that in mind, to make sure these AI tools are designed in a way that respects those cultural differences.
Yeah, it's about collaboration and really understanding the needs of the families who are actually going to be using these tools.
Absolutely. So it's not just about the technology, it's about how it's implemented and how it fits into people's lives.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about the big picture, It feels like AI is going to play such a huge role in how we raise and educate kids in the future. It's hard to imagine it not having a major impact. I mean, AI is changing everything from healthcare to how we interact with each other. So it makes sense that it would transform parenting too. Right. But it's also kind of, I don't know, a little bit overwhelming. We're talking about using technology to shape young minds. It's a big responsibility.
It is a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations now, to really think critically about both the potential benefits and the risks of AI in parenting, and to figure out how to use it ethically and responsibly.
So, what are some of the key things we need to be thinking about as we move forward?
Well, for starters, we need to make sure these technologies are accessible to all families, not just the wealthy ones or the ones who live in super tech-savvy communities.
Right. We don't want to create a digital divide where some kids have access to these amazing learning tools and others are left out.
Exactly. Equity and access are crucial. And of course, data privacy is a huge concern. We need to make sure that children's data is protected and not misused.
Yeah, I can see that being a major worry for parents.
Definitely. It's super sensitive information. And parents need to be fully informed about how that data is being collected and used, and they need to have the option to say no if they're not comfortable.
So it's all about transparency and giving parents control over how AI is used with their kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also need to be really vigilant about the potential for bias in these AI systems. You know how we talked about algorithms reflecting the biases of their creators? Well, that's a huge issue when it comes to something like parenting, because you don't want to create systems that disadvantage certain groups of children.
Right. It's about making sure AI is used to promote fairness and equality, not to perpetuate existing inequalities.
Exactly. And, something we can't forget is that AI is just a tool at the end of the day. It's not a replacement for human connection. Empathy, love, all those things that are essential for a child's development.
It's about finding that balance between technology and human connection, right? Making sure kids are growing up in environments where they feel loved and supported and valued.
Exactly. And that's where parents and caregivers come in. AI can provide amazing insights and support, but it can never replace the warmth of a parent's hug or the joy of playing with friends.
It's about using AI to enhance those human connections, not to replace them.
I think that's a really important point. And it's something we need to keep reminding ourselves as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
So we've talked about accessibility, data privacy bias, the importance of human connection. It's a lot to consider.
It is. It's a complex issue, but it's also an incredibly exciting one. We have this opportunity to use AI to create a better future for our kids, but we need to do it thoughtfully and carefully.
And collaboratively, right. It's not just up to parents. It's up to educators, policymakers, technologists. Everyone needs to be part of this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need everyone's perspectives and insights to figure out how to navigate this new world of AI and parenting.
It's about finding that sweet spot where technology and humanity intersect, where we
Yeah.
can leverage the power of AI while staying true to our values and our commitment to raising happy, healthy, well-rounded kids.
And it all comes back to that, doesn't it? The well-being and happiness of our children. That should be our guiding principle as we move forward.
Well said. I think that's a great note to pick up right where we left off. I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around, all this stuff about AI and kids, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
It is. It's such a fast-moving field. Like what we know today could be totally different in a year, even a few months.
Yeah, it's exciting, but it's also a little bit like, whoa, how do we keep up with all this?
It's a good question.
Yeah,
And I think the key is to stay curious.
right.
Keep learning, keep asking questions because this stuff it's not going away.
Definitely not. And one thing I really want our listeners to take away from this deep dive is that AI isn't just like some far off sci-fi thing anymore. It's already here. It's part of our lives, and it's already shaping how we raise and educate kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Think about it from those educational apps kids use to, I don't know, the algorithms that schools are using to personalize learning. AI is
Right.
it's already making a difference in how kids learn and grow.
And as we've been talking about, that raises a lot of questions about, how do we use this technology responsibly? How do we make sure it's actually benefiting kids and not harming them?
Yeah, those are the big questions. And there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is just being aware. Understanding how AI is being used, what the potential benefits and risks are, so we can start making more informed decisions.
So what can our listeners actually do? Like, what are some practical steps they can take to navigate all
Oh,
this?
I think education is key.
Yeah.
Stay informed, read articles, listen to podcasts. There's so much great information out there. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Like if you're not sure how a particular app is using AI, reach out to the developers, read reviews, talk to other parents. The more we talk about this stuff, the better equipped we'll be to make good decisions.
So it's about being proactive, right? Not just sitting back and letting technology happen to us, but really engaging with it, thinking critically about it.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that technology it's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's not a replacement for, good parenting. It's
Yeah.
not a substitute for human connection.
So don't be afraid to like put the phone down, turn off the tablet, and just, spend time with your kids, play games, read books, have conversations. Those things that's still so important.
They are. They're the foundation of healthy child development.
Yeah.
And AI can be a part of that, but it should never be the whole story.
I love that AI can be a part of the story, but not the whole story. It's
Yeah.
all about finding that balance, right?
Finding the balance. And I think that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
Using AI to enhance and support our relationships with our kids, not to replace them.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into AI and parenting. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation, and I hope it's given our listeners, I don't know, maybe some new perspectives, some food for thought.
Yeah, me too. It's a conversation that I think we all need to be having, and I'm glad we could be a part of it.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.